thing, that one thing.
About that thing
Yes.
we can't talk about. Secret.
That thing in that place that one time.
But I'm expecting he's going to be here.
You're expecting? Congratulations, Ryan. Is it a boy?
Does that work?
I'm expecting John.
Can you hear me now?
Oh, we
I
hear
hear you now, Wade.
You're,
Okay.
you're hot.
Do you got your
I was gonna
waivers
say,
on?
did you know that Fitbits use Russian GPS?
You mean GLONASS or whatever it's
Hello.
called?
Yeah. And so this whole time I've been running, and I'm like, God damn, the Russians are tracking me.
They're like,
knew it.
this guy sucks at running. Do not recruit him for the military.
Worst runner ever, dude. This guy. This guy.
Oh, I got
So John is supposedly coming, according to the people and places that he goes.
He gave us 3 stories to talk about that he wants to talk about.
We have Russian
we're jumping out of a
intelligence.
3-story building?
John's coming.
Yes, straight Russian intelligence.
Straight.
John's currently, his GPS to this meeting is broken.
Getting
Using his
jammed.
Fitbit.
I think it's Fitbit. Yeah.
Oh, I got a message. Maybe a hair late to the news. He's got to run to the bathroom or something.
Tell
I
him
don't
us
know.
and our 10,000 viewers will all wait patiently for him.
Yeah, we're just all set here. Everyone's like, where is John at?
If you won't wait for John, please send a comment in the chat, and we'll know. Go ahead. And get started.
If you do not care whether John is here, let us know. Right?
Or alternatively, if you can wait for John, just hit subscribe, because that's basically how the internet works.
That's right.
Yes, because that's when you'll get the alert when John arrives. Actually, whether you want him to stay or go or be here or whatever, press subscribe. Just subscribe. That way you'll know.
No, we need those.
Or if
those
you're on
Amazon,
Twitch.
those Prime subs.
If you're on Twitch,
Sub.
click
Yeah.
follow. There is no subscribing on Twitch.
No, there's Prime subs, isn't there?
There-
Are we not affiliated yet?
Well, that's
we are, because
different,
I
though.
sub
That's
to.
on the Twitch channel, yeah.
So on YouTube, subscribing is just like, hey, I want this in my algorithm. On Twitch, subscribing is like a $5 a month contribution.
We are streaming to Twitch, so that does apply. I'll put the link up for our Twitch.
See?
There
Yes,
it is.
John receives a personal notification whenever someone subscribes. So,
It's
so just
true.
know that.
That's why.
Smash it. Smash
That's why he's yes. And honestly, the harder you
Subscribe,
smash it,
unsubscribe, unsubscribe. Just fill it up.
We
there's
should
no way to
totally
do that
do
with an API.
Yes.
I can't
there's no-
imagine. I mean, he gets so many legitimate emails just from business stuff. How does he manage?
Just, could you
Well,
imagine his
some say
phone?
he's just built different. It's a
His
genetic-
Russian GPS really just plans out the whole day for him perfectly and just hits every point.
It's like 3 p.m. Submit the DA passwords for BHIS. 4 p.m. meeting.
He's got his day planned all out. It would be funny though. Just imagine his phone just lighting up with like people subscribing. Ding ding.
Someone asked about cool subscriber perks for Twitch, and here's what I can recommend: better sleep, better smile. Like laughter is all medicine, so it technically cures all diseases.
Don't wear your socks in the rain. It just doesn't feel right.
Your fruits will taste better. All fruits are immediately more ripe. Your avocados won't go bad. There's all kinds of benefits.
Yeah.
Your fruit
These are
will be
all
more
included.
secure.
They're included for free.
Your computer will
encryption
automatically be secured. That's also
Your computer will no longer be hackable, unless you use it.
If you disconnect your computer from the internet, it will now be unhackable. That's it.
Wait, what's your address?
Your
Let me send you
avocado
this USB
toast will
drive.
become
real quick.
artisan.
Yeah. All subscribers will receive a free USB drive.
No. One of the other perks is every time you go to plug in a USB, it's the right direction the first time.
Whoa, subscribe instantly. Oh my god.
That's a subscriber perk right there, if I've ever heard one.
Yeah,
Man,
that
it is.
USB-C though?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. If only.
Ralph, stop reading the fine print. Do not read the fine print.
No, it's lightning.
If you read the end user license agreement for the iPhone, I'm pretty sure it says something about that.
Yeah.
Did we get a final vote on start with or without John?
We can start without him. What could go wrong?
We got Ralph
What?
here. We're good to go.
We got Ralph.
Yeah, he's been missing for a while.
I know. I've been busy.
I was scared.
But I'm back.
Scared a gator got you or something. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, no. I usually can fend him off.
Yeah, I say roll.
Was there a gator wrestling tournament? Is that where you were?
There actually was. No kidding. I hit Ralph up the other day because my local 4-H fair or whatever had a gator wrestling thing at like 9 a.m. I was like, do I get up and go see Ralph wrestle, or do I just sleep in today?
What's funny is he hit me up and I was like, I didn't make it because I was actually just like sick. So that's the only reason I didn't make it. But I was actually going to be there.
So that's a school. It's because it's 4-H is school, right? So that's a school regulated gator wrestling.
No, 4-H is like farm and things like that.
Future Farmers of America, right? Or no?
Yeah,
but I don't see how it fits because you have alligators and then like farm animals all
gator farming
near each other.
Gator farms.
Yeah, gator farm.
They're everywhere, right?
Gator tails.
I mean, I would say it's free dinner. I mean, you want to be owning the carnivore. You want to own the carnivore, not the prey. Like that's the classic thing.
Training for how to protect your flocks.
Yeah.
All right, I say we roll the tape and get started.
Right. The call is made.
Welcome to Black Hills Information Security, talking about the news. I'm your host today, Ralph May. I am back from a sabbatical and gator wrestling, and I have a all-star studded cast of people that I just met today, actually. No, I'm just kidding. We have Corey, who somehow makes it onto the show. We're not sure. We can't get him to leave. We have Ryan. I know. We got to stop that. We got Ryan, who makes it sound good and look good and be pretty and post these shows and all the other fun stuff. We got Steve. Steve, welcome back.
I'm back.
We got Mike. We also have Bronwyn. Thanks for joining. And we have Wade wading through the logs or doing whatever he's doing right now. So welcome, everybody. Also, and John may or may not show up. Who knows? It's a miracle or a travesty, one or the other. So yeah, what's up, guys?
Instead of Sasquatch sightings, we may have a John sighting.
Yeah, the John.
Just as rare, yeah.
The John forecast is coming in strong at a 76.2%.
All right, what news?
So what happened?
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm saying. What had happened was.
So we talked about this before the show. Apple traffic makes a mysterious detour through Russia. What is that all about?
Are we talking about BGP prefix attacks? Because it sounds like
we are. Oh, yeah, we said the magic words. We said the magic words to get John.
Russia or BGP?
No, BGP.
Someone talk about an attack from 2008 and summon me?
It's a news article from last week.
All right. So let's talk about this. So back in 2008, there were a couple of security researchers that were at Black Hat, and they released an attack where you could do something called ASN or BGP prefix attacks. So if you look at how ASNs work, so let's say Amazon is responsible for an ASN. Think of it as like a zip code of the internet. And that zip code is responsible for, say, 400 IP addresses. And that's how it's broken up. What you can do is you can broadcast a new ASN that is more specific and has overlap with the larger ASN's list of IP addresses. So if Apple or Amazon or Microsoft or any of these different organizations, they say that they've got 100 IP addresses and you broadcast just one, the more specific route wins for that specific set of IP addresses or that IP address. So you can literally, and by the way, this attack works. Like it works really well. And it's just the way that ASN BGP prefixing works. So what they did whenever they set it all up was, if you have two competing zones, the idea is that the person that has the more specific ASN is probably less likely to have made a mistake, so that one wins. So they were able to demonstrate that this attack actually could reroute traffic, and they actually rerouted some of the traffic for Black Hat through their systems in New York City whenever they did this. So we've seen this happen a number of times. In the article, it talks about how last year Russia did this, and I know that China was rerouting a bunch of traffic from Wyoming for some reason through China for a short period of time. But no, this actually happens. I see that wade through logs. I feel like welcome to Campfire Stories from John Strand.
And then guess what? The scariest part, BGP never changed.
So no, so that's how this attack works, and it's scary for a number of reasons. One, like you said, BGP never changed, right? There's just a series of organizations that'll watch BGP and watch as the ASNs get broadcast, and they'll look for changes to the routing of the internet and look for these types of attacks. But clearly with this particular one, they didn't detect it right away. And I also know that nation states like the United States was actually using this attack for a while before 2008. So this was an attack that was actually utilized by the United States government in some situations. I've heard before it was actually released publicly. But no, you see Russia has done it. I know China has done it. It is a really interesting attack. So look it up. It's awesome.
So I feel like this, so they tried to hijack an entire /19 out of Apple's /8. So I feel like this is either really scary and they like found out somehow that Apple's using this /19 internally because companies do that. Maybe like it's either really scary and like for 12 hours or whatever, they siphoned out a bunch of Apple's internal network traffic to their space, or it's just someone tried it and didn't realize, like someone ran a tool and it actually was running and they didn't know it was working. Like it's hard to tell with Russia.
I left a BGP responder running at the client's network and it just destroyed everything.
It's hard to tell nowadays with Russia. Like, is it totally scary or totally faily? I don't know.
Vlad, you put the backslash in the wrong spot. You're taking the wrong internet.
So the fact that it's Russia makes me think it was actually a real attack. Or it was a real attempt at an attack. The fact that it actually popped through, that's too coincidental, right? That's the number one. Number two, I know the internet works, right, with ASN and BGP prefix and all that, but are we still accepting like route changes from Russia? That seems suspect to me.
Oh,
does IPv6 fix all this?
Yeah,
yeah,
so
it fixes everything.
Yeah,
that's what I assumed.
You can actually broadcast specific addresses as well.
So I looked on Shodan for this entire /19 and there is nothing. So
there isn't anything now.
Too, right?
That's why it could be very scary if it's like Apple's using this internally for like all their authentication databases or something. Like, you know, there could be some scary back end stuff happening.
Yeah, but no. So what do you do about this attack? One, look, this isn't a script kiddie attack where somebody that's on a Comcast cable modem can launch this attack against you. Like, you have to actually be an ISP who has the ability to broadcast ASNs and changes, which is literally hundreds of companies on the internet and organizations on the internet. So you have to be a pretty big player for this particular attack to happen. So I wouldn't worry about it. There are vendors out there that are watching it all the time, and you can subscribe to their services. I can't remember some of their names, but they'll watch ASNs and see if somebody broadcasts out the ASNs that your organization is responsible for, but they tend to be expensive. But the vast majority of companies that are out there, this attack's not for you. This isn't something that someone's going to use to knock over a mom and pop bicycle shop or even a small bank or credit union. This is usually big stuff that's being done when this happens.
And ISPs just don't want to spend the money to implement RPKI or whatever. That's what it comes down to.
Okay, so this is what's interesting. It only works if you have that basically set up across a super majority of all the
Right,
ISPs.
it has to be everyone. It has to be all the big ISPs.
Yep. And it's like, this can be secure if everyone all agrees. When has that ever happened? So.
Zero.
What would happen if someone just did this less as an attack and more as a terror attack, just to throw a wrench in the entire internet?
Oh, yeah.
Almost like how Mirai DDoS DNS servers. If someone did this and just said, screw the internet as a whole.
I think that this absolutely could be like a shot across the bow type thing, where Russia is like, hey, we're still here and we can totally screw with the entire internet. So I thought about that as well, because this wasn't a very long-lived attack. Nothing really horrific happened. But it definitely, you could look at this, as a country like Russia, taking a shot across the bow just to let everyone know that there's a tremendous amount of damage that they can still do.
John, you said this not long-lived. Why is that? Does it automatically revert back to its previous state, or does somebody rebroadcast the net back out there so that it takes
you
back
absolutely
over?
can back it out. So you can absolutely back out these particular changes. The reason why I say it's not really all that long-lived is because the number of organizations that are actively watching for this type of attack, like when this happened, it was 12 hours, I think, which is shocking to me that it lasted as long as it did. But yeah, there's usually people that figure this out fairly quickly on a large scale. Like if you're trying to reroute everything from Google, you're gonna get caught really, really, really quickly. Where if you're running this as an attack against an organization, you're specifically broadcasting out their VPN, it might last a lot longer in that particular situation. But generally, the ones that we've seen, they get caught within a day, sometimes within hours, and they get rolled back.
Gotcha. Thanks.
You bet. Oh, what other stories do we get to, since I came right into one of my favorite stories? By the way, I love these attacks that never die. There's a reporter, she calls them forever days. They're just, it's the way it works, folks, and it's going to be like that for a long time. Buckle up.
Well, I guess speaking of forever days, what about this? Windows 11 now blocks RDP brute force attacks by default. What about 10? What about server? What about like everything else? Like, and why so long?
Yeah.
Isn't RDP like
Position 11 is the more secure operating system? I've been out.
Yeah. You got to upgrade, or you just get hacked.
You got to pay for that F5 license or E5 license.
If they can't make up their minds on macros, how are they going to make up their minds on RDP? Right? Just go.
Is it even enabled by default? Like it's not. Like even in pro.
Not for local accounts. Yeah, right. You can brute force all you want, but. I mean, they bring up on here that it's basically being done to help prevent ransomware, because we talk about it all the time. Ransomware is often deployed through RDP portals that have been exposed. But how often are those Windows 11 boxes, right? How big of a market share is this actually fixing? I think
fully
like
patched,
Corey said,
it's exposed to the internet.
Yeah. Yeah, I think they should go to the other operating systems and make it by default as well, but who knows?
Yeah, across the board, you should have lockouts for RDP after it's like something pretty broad too. It's 10 bad password guesses and it's like a 10-minute lockout, but it's like, I mean, still though.
This is so, to me, this is totally the same thing Russia was doing, or claiming Russia's doing. They're just like, hey, Windows 10 over here, we have things. Yeah. Like, it doesn't know who password guesses against RDP in the first place. I'll just hit Office 365 where I can do like 1 million attempts in like 5 minutes. Like,
I mean, if I see RDP, I'll a password guess attempt it, right? Especially if it's, I mean, there's no lockout, right? So I'm just like hammering this local account. I mean, like, and also they have RDP exposed on the perimeter. So, I mean, security level's high. At this
fair. On the internet, I agree. On the internet, fair, but like there's, it's funny that Microsoft's like user enumeration doesn't matter. Password guessing, now we really care. It's like, it's like, dude, keep it consistent. You don't care about password guessing, but you do care about password guessing when it can bring people to Windows 11, the amazing new operating.
Yeah, I feel like Windows 11 is the E6 licensing level. It's like the champagne room of security levels. It's getting insane. So
some marketing VP.
For all of your operating systems, no, and it's got to be Windows 11.
Yeah.
But look also at the fact, I don't think they're going to see as widespread adoption of Windows 11 as they're hoping, because they've locked everybody out who has old hardware. None of my current hardware can handle Windows 11.
It's weird. I don't know how much, and it's not even that old, Bronwyn. Like it's not even that old. So who knows?
I know.
And they keep forcing you more and more to use.
I've got my gaming box that I custom built when I went into cybersecurity so I can run lots of VMs. I've got plenty of system resources. I've got plenty of cores, but for some strange reason, it just isn't quite what Windows 11 wants. So all of that RDP stuff.
I think they spent too much time talking to Apple. Apple's like, the computers are fine. No more updates for the operating system. By the way, Bronwyn, it's fantastic to see you in real time.
It is so good to be here. I've been discovering what it's like to live in a civilized universe for a change. I'm still under a rock, but now I can stream.
Yeah, it's awesome. Get off of HughesNet onto Starlink. That's so
wow.
So cool.
You're on the link.
She's on the link.
Yep.
So this brings up a good potential phishing campaign. We could just have like a TPM download for Windows 11.
TPM. Honestly, I think when they came out with the requirements list for Windows 11, it's like the champagne list of requirements too.
Yeah.
Like, oh, your computer needs to run AI, has to have ML, and this is a special security chip that we're going to mandate.
Have you tried to virtualize Windows 11 at all yet?
You can. Yeah. Yes,
I've had so many problems trying to get it running, and then I realized it's because I'm on a Windows 10 box that doesn't have TPM.
Yeah, you can't put Windows 11 inside of Windows 10. It's a strict no.
It's just blue screen of death over and over again.
So this is literally the Windows Vista. This is the curse of every other update.
It's the
tick.
tick.
A train wreck, right?
It's the tick or the talk.
It's the bad one.
It's the bad.
Yes, there's good, bad, and now we're on the bad.
Yeah.
So we're all gonna have to wait for 12.
It's just probably
I
called
thought it was
Windows
the silence
Cloud.
between the tick and the talk.
It's the silence.
We're just going straight to 15 after this. I heard
the silent release is
goes to 11.
I hate to spoil it, guys. I already know what the new Microsoft Windows is going to be called. It's going to be called Windows 365. That'll be it. That's it.
Oh God.
Wait, no more numbers. They're going to get rid of numbers. It's just always going to suck.
Well, they have to start at like 180 first.
By the way, you guys are all getting lit up. By the way, I just want you to know, those of you that are complaining about trying to run a Windows 11 VM on a Windows 10 system, you're getting eaten alive.
I see that.
Sounds like user error.
Eric,
I don't deny it. Eric, throw me your blog.
Taylor's like, not to be an a-hole, but it's not that hard.
Throw me your blog. I tried for like an hour.
Oh man.
Hey, I went from Windows 10.
Having no problems. Here's the deal. Don't hire Black Hills Information Security for your desktop tech support. That's not what this is not our core competence. If you want us to fudge logs so we can brute force RDP on a server, yeah, we can totally do that all day long. But like, if you're running this particular HP notebook computer, it runs just, I don't care. It's not my thing. So
just to end it, yes, you can run
our listeners are like, F you guys, it's not that hard. So there you go.
You can run it on all of the. You can virtualize it. They fixed that. There was the TPM stuff, which is I think what people are talking about. Whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Yeah. You could do it, right? You could do anything, right?
I think it's adorable. that the internet has found you wanting.
Oh.
Yeah, you guys kind of suck.
Yeah.
All right.
This is why I don't write blog posts.
Yeah. What else? What else we got?
Newly released malware. That happens a lot.
So we got to stop over at Ransomware Corner.
Yeah.
Apparently,
Ryan's
this is like
this story for us.
This is like
Ryan?
Sorry, what?
Story roulette. What do we got?
I was gonna say we can laugh at this like feel good ransomware story. These hackers gave up when they hit MFA.
Yep.
It's like, this is what, like, is this written? Does Danny
This
Palmer
for the CISO. This is literally it's like landed in all of their inboxes.
Yeah. This is CISO news.
Have you found the BHIS Talking About News podcast too depressing? Well, wait till we see this story. MFA makes it impossible to get ransomware. What could go wrong?
I agree with the concept of the story that, like, most attackers, if they had MFA, they're going to move on to somebody that doesn't have it. Fine. Okay, great, whatever. But seriously, for a targeted attacker, there are ways around MFA. Like, just so you know, MFA hasn't shut down like Trusted Sec, Secure Ideas, Black Hills Information Security. Like, we're doing fine, still breaking into organizations that are using MFA. And it would be nice if more people used MFA, but this gets into one of my problems with threat intelligence, where you have some researchers that see attackers like bypass or just skipped over when they saw MFA, And the problem I have with this story is you talk about the CSO. What they're literally going to do now is like, no, we don't need to patch. We don't need to upgrade to Windows 11. Stand back, ladies and gentlemen. We have MFA. And I read an article.
Here, hold my beer.
What's that?
Here, hold my beer.
Exactly.
Oh God. I didn't tell you guys this, but so have you guys heard of risk-based patching? And this kind of goes with this article.
No.
Yeah.
So there was an article, I got to find it. I should send it in, but it goes with this. So risk-based patching is basically where you only fix the vulnerabilities in your environment that have a high probability of an attacker attacking. So they're literally saying if something hasn't been attacked by a group and it's not part of like a threat intel feed, it can get a lower risk rating and a lower criticality to get fixed in your organization.
As an intel guy, I can confirm this is a thing that is actively used. Looking for like proof of concepts or actively used in the wild is like very, I would say, raises the risk level, right? But it's also going to raise the criticality of that ticket you put in for vulnerability 100%.
Oh my God.
But
it's so bad.
So
it's bad, yeah. But do you think that a does it make logical sense, or do you not believe so?
Nope, makes no logical sense whatsoever. And the reason why it doesn't. What's that, Bronwyn?
Right.
I can see that as a way of prioritizing, but not saying that we're only going to apply these patches.
Yeah.
Using it as a way of, okay, these are known, so we're going to do them first.
And that's what I was been doing, yeah.
But the problem with prioritizing conversations is almost universally whenever you're having a prioritizing conversation with a company, it's really saying, what can we ignore? Right?
Yes.
And that's what they're trying to get at. And Wade, you've been through my class. I know that you know this, and Bronwyn has too. The way that you handle vulnerabilities is sort them by the plugin ID or the vulnerability ID and fix them in an automated way. Don't try to fix them one at a time. Otherwise, you get into these conversations of prioritization. I did get into an argument with MITRE a long time ago. When MITRE first released, I said there was no password spraying attacks in MITRE. They didn't have anything that was in that category. And we went back and forth, and they said, yeah, pen testers do that. We don't see real world attackers doing that, so we don't think it rises to the level of something that should be in MITRE. So we went back and forth a few times, and I shared some incidents that we had dealt with. But the point was, whenever we start playing that game, then we only we're dealing with the elephant problem. And what I mean by that is a lot of threat intel feeds, they're looking at an elephant and they're blind, or they're touching an elephant and they're blind. And they describe the elephant based on what they touch. And if we look at vulnerability management, if we look at threat intel through that lens, then there's a very small subset of threat intel analysts that are working and doing threat intel, and the attacks are much larger, and there's far more variety of attacks than what they are actually seeing. So the point boils down to fix your damn vulnerabilities. Don't prioritize and ignore. Just fix them, and we can get past this, because an attacker that's coming after your organization is not going to have a cyber kill chain and say, here's the 13 things we do. Oh shit. They fixed all of those. We're done. Attacks are like water. They're going to find the cracks. They're going to find the vulnerabilities that present themselves to the attacker themselves.
So, John, what I've actually think what I've seen a lot of people doing is actually called BHIS based patching, where customers patch what we report.
Okay.
Wow.
Corey, you laughed about that, but you remember the tests that we're working on? Like, they literally have one of our tests that we're working on. They have hundreds of vulnerabilities, and they only want to patch the ones that we can successfully exploit. That is not the way to live your life.
So I will say, I think this does come into having value when you're talking about beyond vulnerability management and into configuration management, like, because you do have trade-offs of, you can't just disable SMB version 2 support as an example, or you can't disable SMB version 1 support because it breaks this vendor application or whatever. So you have to prioritize, like, well, the exploits are there. It's, we have to just eat this and pay for a new appliance or whatever. So with patching, I agree, because there's no excuse for not patching, because it's, in most cases it's as easy as rebooting, which should be possible, etc. It shouldn't be too bad. But in the cases of like configuration based things, like ADCS is the forever day that we're living in right now. It's like if you turn certain parts of it off, it breaks things. If you disable certain pieces, certificates break. It just causes issues. So people don't prioritize it until we say, hey, we just got DA. And the customer's like, what? We haven't gotten DA in 2 years in our last pen test. What's going on? And we're like, here you go.
Okay. So I've got a counter argument for that, and I'd love it to be an open conversation. Whenever you're looking at the exploitability of a vulnerability, right? And people are like, we're prioritizing these vulnerabilities. Then why the hell is it with like PCI and the powers that be, TLS SSL vulnerabilities are one of those things that absolutely have to be fixed, whenever I honestly cannot tell you an incident that I've worked on or an attack other than like SSL strip, SSL split, where we're like, well, we actually used an inherent vulnerability in SSL version 2 that we were able to exploit and break into this environment.
I mean, you're right.
About SSL vulnerability and that one coming up and just like the poodle attack and all.
I mean, there's a lot of Ralph's microphone. Like he's not going through that beautiful mic. It's like a microphone in his wife's computer in the other room right now.
Yeah, I think that's technically a security camera recording him. But yeah, I mean, I guess it's like it comes down to compliances and security. We've talked about that a lot. This is clients attempting to move, or people attempting to move away from the whole like patch everything and into secure, patch the things that make you more secure. But I do agree, it's kind of the conversation around it is misguided because it comes down to what can we ignore? It's not a triage thing where it's like, oh, well, we want to fix everything. We only have 3 hours a week or whatever of downtime windows. It's more like, what can we just not care about? So.
Yeah, Wade, what are your thoughts, man? You're more on the front lines than any of us. We're all just talking heads.
I know, right? Like, oh, someone just knocked on my door now. Now the Russians are here.
Again.
I understand, like, being on the blue team, too, is a little bit rougher. Like, I understand your logic behind all this stuff and the prioritization and stuff, but I feel like you're living in a dream world. If that makes sense. That's the best case scenario. No one lives in that world, and very rarely is anyone ever going to be able to do that. So you have to have some type of logic to work on in order to create tickets and to push buttons and to message managers and said, hey, this needs to get fixed. This is why. And then if you can push that even more with threat intelligence, then go for it. It's awesome. But I think that would be my biggest argument is you need ammo in your gun a lot of the times to push management to patch stuff. And sadly, intelligence is one of those key bullets, silver bullets.
Right.
Being a blue teamer, I can totally agree with Wade on this. The other problem that we run into, at least at places that I've worked at, is the amount of time for testing and the amount of time that people actually have, considering a lot of the teams that are doing the patches are understaffed and are trying to work on 20 other projects along with trying to do the patches. So if there's something that we know is going to be, hey, this could directly affect us, yes, we're going to go ahead and push that patch and say, yes, this is a priority. On the flip side of it, it gives us that ammo on something that has been open forever, say insecure LDAP or something along those lines. It gives us that ammo to say, listen, we can get easily pwned by this vulnerability. And we've talked to you guys about this 5 times already the last 5 years, and you still haven't fixed it. Why the heck not?
Well,
it lets you tell a story.
And where I'm coming from in my fantasy land, whenever we're looking at companies, right? Whenever we're looking at our companies that we are doing work with, there are the companies that are asking these types of threat intel type questions, and their networks are usually a train wreck because they're constantly trying to prioritize. They're constantly trying to figure out what they can ignore. They're constantly looking at the minimum. When we get to companies that are actually doing what I talk about in my fantasy land, of basically setting up and how do you automate taking care of vulnerabilities across multiple different systems and trying to address the lows, informationals, and mediums and those types of automatic ways, their organizations are far more secure. So what we're seeing here, I honestly, and what you guys are saying, it isn't even a technical component of it. It's a far more political component of it. And I feel like what you're talking about isn't an issue of a technological approach. It has much more to do with the politics of actually trying to get systems administrators to fix their goddamn vulnerabilities. And that is not a technical problem. That is a political problem. And I agree with what Wade said. If this is ammunition that's going to help you get through that political hump, then so be it.
And that point is so on target too. I've worked for companies where it was the engineering department. We had to explain to upper management that no, it's not okay for everyone in the department to be using the same creds to lock into this in-house tool that allows carte blanche access to make, delete, or modify every single customer record that we have in-house. And dealing with that mindset of everything works, why should we update it? Yeah. It's really, really hard to help people understand, yeah, it works and we're falling behind. And then eventually what happens, and this is true life, I've been here, we had to jump 3 or 4 full integers for Fusion on our entire web server farm.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a total death march. And we had tens of thousands of lines of legacy code, and every single one had to be fixed.
And that's one of those things where I agree, Bronwyn, right? Like making that jump is huge in any organization, right? But if you can get into that type of rigor and get into that process, the best time to have done it was 5 years ago. The second best time is today for that type of rigor. And I do see organizations like that all the time, that they get so far behind that trying to get caught up is next to impossible.
So
and I've also seen,
or go ahead, Bronwyn, sorry.
I've also seen can get people internally who can drive the.
Oh no, we just talked about
Elon. No.
The satellite moved. It's not in range.
The news
she'll be back in like 2 minutes.
Elon,
she'll go faster.
Yeah, Elon found out he had a couple more children, and it's cutting into the budget.
She's back.
So.
Sorry about that. If you can get someone internal, like a CEO, CIO, CTO, whatever, who can help push forward the agenda of getting the automation, it takes a lot of upfront effort. It takes a lot of upfront retrofitting. But once you can get it going, I mean, we got to a point at this one company in particular where we were able to push upgrades to production multiple times in a day without hiccups. But it took a lot of effort, and it took a lot of internal political, what's the word? Not rallying. Not just capital, but I'm spacing on it. Lobbying. It took a lot of internal lobbying to get that type of program pushed through. And then it's only after the fact that it's like, well, why weren't we doing this the entire time? And watch the entire engineering department want to go beat their heads against a wall.
Changing the culture of the company. It requires a lot of culture changing in order to get something like that pushed through.
So here's my hot take. The public, or the like publicly exploitable true, or exploits available true, or exploited in the wild true, those are all just, this product may cause cancer according to the state of California. Like it's just like, okay, so we filtered our Nessus findings. There's 100 criticals, 92 say they're exploitable in the wild. Okay, so take those 8, throw them away. Okay, now there's 92. We still have to prioritize. What do we care about now? Like, I think it's like alert fatigue, where it's like, someone go out and exploit every vulnerability, then it's exploited in the wild and they have to fix everything. Like, also, like, where is this data coming from? Like, who is deciding whether it's exploited in the wild? If, like, in the example of Tenable, what is their threat intel? Like, where are they getting this data? Are they?
So I'll take this part over.
Do you know? Yeah, do you know?
Yeah. So right. So this goes a whole along the lines with telling a story, right? So if you can tell a story on why we should patch it, and it's a good story, it's gonna work, right?
It's got to be a good story, though, not a.
It's got to be a good. Well, you got to be able to spin that web, right? So the big thing is, if you have a competitor that got breached, and look at this vulnerability is what caused it, and I then tell you that, You think our C-suite is going to want that vulnerability in our network? No, they're going to say patch it all, patch it as soon as we can. So that's part of telling the story. So you're actively reading news articles, right? Anything you can get your hands on. Then there is threat intel vendors that provide that list of anything that's in a GitHub repo or that's been seen in a report that's been exploited. And then has that been exploited by a threat? Then we're going to the next level. Has it been exploited by a threat actor that you're potentially following that actively targets people in your sector, right? So then next thing you know, it's like some ransomware gang and they just target everyone, so everyone patches it.
So I've got this in my pen testing class that I just released. It's literally a slide, and I could probably find it. But if you're doing a pen test, and if at any point ever, anybody from the customer side says, yes, but is this actively being exploited by APT, pick number here? Always say yes. Time. And, just roll with it. It doesn't matter who they are. Is this being attacked by Shadow Panda 52? Yes, absolutely.
If we know, they know.
If we know, we're a small boutique pen testing company. They're a goddamn nation state.
Trust me.
Yeah.
Trust me.
The main one I think about, though, is more of like Conti and stuff like that, right? The people who are just straight up running a playbook and that we know exactly their steps are doing, I feel like that type of threat intelligence at least goes a little bit further up in my count. But even then, we don't get those playbooks very too often.
My point is, it is ultimately not a valuable technical resource. Exploitable in the wild or exploited in the wild is like, it's a story that someone may have just made up. Yeah.
So this just goes back to like John was saying, it's not a technical thing, it's a political thing.
So, okay, yeah. John, can we hire someone that just writes fake write-ups of companies getting hacked with every vulnerability?
We need that.
We need
a tester to be like, dude, I just exploited this place using this technique. Can we write a blog? And we could be like, before unknown attack group, we'll give them a name. Pity Sad Tiger. We saw them using this technique. And what we won't tell everybody is it's actually BHIS. And like all of our APT write-ups, it's every time it's us. We were the ones that did it. That's the big M. Night Shyamalan twist at the end.
Dun, dun.
You have some guy on the dark web researching and talking to all these ransomware actors and really...
They're like, is this you? No,
Who is this group? God damn, they break into a lot of stuff.
They got really advanced tactics. They seem to know our company way better than we should.
It's like they have an insider threat. They're just giving them the scope.
A lot of attack is coming from inside the house.
So did you guys see this article about Google and Amazon? This is privacy police here, letting police see your videos, right? So,
we talked about this last week, and we went on a whole tirade.
Oh, sorry, I'll stop then.
Let's hear John's hot take on it, though.
I wasn't here.
So, okay, John, there is like an AWS submit instance form where if you check if it's an emergency, you just get access to 24/7 Ring video surveillance capabilities, including real time.
Do you want this?
Submit.
All you have to do is check a box that says you're lost.
Just
watching
pack it up. Like, let's kill the show.
We're done.
All right. So, oh God.
So it's law enforcement only portal. That course
cool.
only.
But
law
it's
enforcement.
restricted.
That includes mall cops. That includes private. No, I'm just kidding.
Hey, don't worry, Corey. They have a firewall.
What's that, Steve?
They have a firewall.
No,
it's okay.
It's US hosted. It's GovCloud. It's fine.
It's an encryption wall.
It's FedRAMP. It's all good.
I'm gonna go through this like all the ideas. Like, number one, this is just a bad idea. Like, if you're a famous person, like you're an actor and actress, why do you have any cameras on anything in your house anywhere at all?
Oh, man.
One of the things I'm gonna throw out there, because this is gonna be abused.
Whenever
I was working on a program called ICMAP, Intelligence Community Multi-Acquisition Program for the IC community under NRO. It was basically where you could share information between like the NSA, the FBI, the CIA, to kind of deal with the shortcomings that happened because of September 11th or before September 11th. And we put in all of these controls around the FISA courts, where if you want to gather intelligence on a U.S. citizen, you've got to go through a FISA request to get it. And there were all of these different things that we had to have in the system. And when Edward Snowden released a bunch of information relating to like systems like this and other systems, all that crap was replaced with a drop-down box, and like there was an option for other, and it would immediately get access to this data out in the tunnel in Hawaii. And this is what I think of whenever I see these things, right? Where you have this level of control where they can get all of this and it's easily accessible, and all you need to do is go to a forum and just say, hey, you're with law enforcement. This is absolutely terrifying because it's going to be abused, not just by law enforcement, which is totally going to be abused by law enforcement.
It's been abused.
Going to find ways in as well.
The journalist that wrote it, they had their data requested 3 times in the last 30 days. like it's already in, like they're not even. It's not like there was shootings outside of their house. Like,
yeah. So this is just crazy, and this gets into like another conversation about protection of rights. And this came up in one of the myriad of classes I've been teaching for the past month. They were, there's always this fight for putting backdoors in crypto, right? And you have people that are like, well, we got to put backdoors in crypto because, we don't want pedophiles and all these bad people and terrorists to be able to use crypto. And if you push back, you have people that say, well, you don't want pedophiles to be able to get away from the law because of crypto or something like this. Yeah, I do, actually. I use an analogy of air. I breathe air. Everybody breathes air. Pedophiles and terrorists breathe air. Do not use an argument that's like, we should get rid of air because bad people use it. Security and privacy is absolutely something that should be available to absolutely everyone, whether or not they're good people or they're bad people. And just to say that only good people will have access to this ability to completely bypass all of your privacy and all your rights is horseshit. And we've got to start trying to shut this stuff down some more. And I don't know how we deal with it, because you're always dealing with those arguments. They're like, but if law enforcement doesn't have this, then bad people will be able to, it's going to take us longer to catch bad people.
The other angle I want to put about this, and this goes outside of like the law enforcement piece, right? But just the fact that we're giving control to large, tech companies. So we've given that to them, and they get to make that decision for us, right?
Yeah.
And that's another piece, right? It's like it's a piece of this bigger story. We've given them that access, and they can decide to make it a switch or like a form that people fill out for law enforcement only or whoever, right? So that's the feature they get to add to this whole thing. And when we purchase their products, we're agreeing to that feature. So I think that's, our kind of somewhat of our defense, right? Is to stop buying the crap that they make that does this, right?
Yeah. If you don't own the data,
how do
will
we
be monetized.
Yeah. Go ahead, Corey. Sorry.
You're good. I just like, if it's not your data on your thing, it's law enforcement accessible is basically where we're at now.
Yeah.
But I don't know how we walk this back. Like, there's no way that this gets better, and it's getting worse over time. Boy, this is becoming really cheery.
So there are companies. It's notable. It's notable if you are like, specifically if you're in the scenario of looking for a security camera. A lot of the other competitors to Google and Amazon have said, we will never do this. Apple, Arlo, Wise, and Anchor. So at the very least, they're pretending like they won't do it. And then, with the only company I believe actually wouldn't do it would be Apple, because they've proven time and time again.
We've had stories. Yeah.
Right. Well, the other thing, and this kind of leads into another article, not to wade into political waters, but the iMessage encryption is like, we have an article here, was part of the reason why the Secret Service is like, oh, we don't have any texts. Oh, they're all gone, because they were iMessage encrypted, which is end-to-end encrypted. And so they're harder to monitor. They're like the carriers can't monitor them like they can for SMS. Like, this is an example, like, is iMessage causing tyranny? Like, like, is that how we, but then it says in the title, we may prevent employees from using iMessage. So it's like, we're just going to force them to use outdated, insecure protocols in the future. Like,
oh my God.
I felt that law enforcement and Apple have gone full circle now. Like,
they have gone full circle. It's like, wait, they're like, so we're friends now?
Oh, yeah. Hurry, everything through iMessage, everything.
They're like, wait, they were all iMessages? Oh my God. this is amazing. Like, yeah, so I don't know. I mean,
there isn't some like Israeli tech firm that can just,
Yeah.
Yeah, they're called.
We could get those back. What's the forensic Celebrate?
No. It's not. It's going to be Pegasus or whatever it's called.
That's originally what I was thinking.
Yeah.
That would be such a good commercial for them. This would have never have happened if they used Pegasus.
Record scratch. You're probably wondering how I got here.
Pegasus for all of your unintentional backup needs.
Unintended backup has occurred.
Yeah.
It is interesting though. Apple, the like encryption that they put into the messaging, right? They have designed it specifically so that they don't have the key, primarily so that they don't have to get in a situation where law enforcement comes to them or whoever and says, give us access to this, right? They don't even want to have it. They're like, well,
yeah, they don't want to have that conversation.
Yeah, they don't even want to have the conversation. It should be like, listen, I don't know how to get into it. We built it so we couldn't get into it, right?
So in recent news, the Secret Service is transferring to nothing but Android phones.
Yes.
No, BlackBerry. They're going all the way back to
BlackBerry, yes.
Nokia bricks.
Is this on 2G?
Yes, only. Actually, all the towers have been decommissioned, but we had to put some up just for these phones.
Yeah, I mean,
no, we're just gonna host our own email servers. It's cool.
Yeah, we'll keep them at the White House.
Yeah. I mean, that's the funny thing, right? Because it's like you have to, like John said, how do we walk? We have to walk this line between self-host everything and cloud host everything.
Yeah.
And that's, if you self-host, sometimes it gets outdated. You don't patch it. Like we've talked so many times about QNAP or Synology NAS that are on the internet that aren't being updated and they're being exploited and turned into bots. That's like, oh, well, I'm hosting my own data. It's not being mined by Apple, Google, Amazon, whoever. But then it's like on the other side, if you use the cloud, well, it's secure. But then like, oh, whoopsies, all your iCloud stuff is accessible. Whoops, like, you know, it's
yeah. But that's the problem, right? Like that self-hosting, I think, is inherently less secure. I mean, we've seen it again. Like Exchange is the perfect example. It's like, well, we're going to host our own email servers. That's never a good idea. I mean, we literally have pen testers in our Monday meeting where we're like, hey, this customer is using their own Exchange server on-prem, and their eyes light up with glee. They're like, this is going to be awesome. It's always inherently, your risk profile is much more dangerous for you trying to self-host than go to the cloud. But then once you go to the cloud, you lose so much control over your data. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's like, oh, Microsoft accidentally posted everyone's emails to GitHub. Whoops! Like who knows? Or like with Office 365, like the last client I did for Red Team didn't use Office 365, so there's a whole chunk of attacks I would normally do: device code phishing, all that, like enroll an Azure tenant, create an app, domain join it, like all the stuff I would normally do. I was like, well, I can't do that. So it's kind of funny, like we've kind of adapted to cloud pen testing somewhat, and then we're like, oh, they don't have cloud. How do I attack Exchange 2016? Does anyone know? Like,
how do I make a deception cloud?
Fake
365 instance.
I don't think self-hosted is more secure or less secure than cloud, right? Like, I think that they both can have the same level of security. But I do think that to John's point, the problem with something like self-hosted is the amount of effort required to get that security, whereas the cloud, they're just kind of taking care of that for you, right? Mm-hmm. And like, I think the attacks, there is just as many cloud attacks and probably even more, and there's probably more cloud attacks that we don't even realize, right, than possibly this self-hosted attack, because these systems are significantly more complex, significantly more systems, right? It's just that they have full teams of people working on it all the time, right? So to say one is necessarily like worse than the other, I don't think we can call that, but I do think that one does require more. Like,
well, it's out of reach for the most people, probably. The truth, the sad, or whatever, the reality is most people, if they're self-hosting, it's going to be an off-the-shelf commercial product, and it's not going to get touched after initial setup. So it has to auto update. It has to configure itself securely by default. It can't be like, oh, whoops, we just have the backdoor password here. Like, and that's all that stuff is like all these extra steps is why I think John's saying that, because it's like, we know people won't do that. We know that people won't change their router default password, so they have to be secure. Like,
our biggest attack is that of misconfiguration. Okay. That is our most valuable attack. And misconfiguration is high with self-hosted or self-managed devices, right?
Right. Yeah.
Where misconfiguration is low for cloud systems, right? Because everyone's getting the same thing. And if it was really exploitable, everyone's getting exploited at the same time.
And that's when it's bad, because that's like when, exactly.
Have you guys ever heard of security really championing for like their internal IT team? Because like that's basic security, right? Is what them setting up. And I feel like sadly they're always the most poor crushed souls ever. So I'm always trying to become best friends with the internal IT guys. Like whatever they need, I try to give them.
Oh no, absolutely. But I think that a lot of it has to do with the attitude of security people too, right?
Yeah.
You know, even security people that don't know anything, don't know much, right? Like I used the SSL TLS vulnerabilities when I was working blue teams years and years and years ago. Sit down with the systems administrator and say this needs to be fixed. You know, a lot of times they're like, you don't know anything. I remember there was one organization I was working with where they used Telnet for absolutely everything. Like it was in their code to use Telnet to manage clustered systems because they were working with systems that were developed in the early 2000s and the 90s. And we're like, you can't do this. This is bad. And it was like, it's going to take millions of dollars to fix. To get rid of that, or doing source code reviews and talking to developers, the same type of problem that you run into. It's like in this code that I just got static code analysis on, you guys use get s 150,000 times. That's really bad, and it's like to go through and fix that is going to cost millions of dollars. So no, I think that is the nature of like the relationship between security and systems administrators. So the more that you can get to know them, the better off you're going to be, because then you can get them to do stuff that they wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
You, right? It's all manipulation.
Sign into this for me with DA real quick. If you can't sign into it on my computer, then who can you trust, really? To tell you that.
I don't think anyone here is from Canada, but I guess did you guys hear about?
I like how he checks behind his shoulder.
Yeah.
So no one's here from
Canada, right? Canadian. Yeah. I guess Tim Hortons.
You mean our hat?
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Timmy Hortons, huh?
Timmy Hortons. Yes. Oh yeah. So I guess that they were collecting tons of like data with their app, like down to like the minute, like GPS. Like I don't know what they thought they were trying to do, but I do think it's funny though that their like supposed settlement is just hot beverage and free baked goods.
Here's your free credit check.
They know what they're doing. They know that area.
I mean, I think.
Hold on. I'm trying to see if their write-up has the word "sorry" in it.
No.
That would be perfect, though. That would be perfect.
There's a Canadian law that they had to pass that says that saying sorry is not an admission of guilt.
They came up with the free coffee and free donut just because of all the police officers that are going to them. Let's admit it.
So okay, you realize what this is going to be in the future. It's going to say we'd like to collect your location data. Would you agree to this for one donut? Like,
yes, I would say yes. Uninstall the app.
Yes, for 2 donuts, we're going to track you wherever you go. For 3 donuts, only in the for 1 donut, only in the store.
White Cyberduck is. I'm surprised the government of Canada doesn't consider this an act of war. What the whole live stream? Yeah.
For a whole 12-pack of donuts, we will actually use your phone as a VPN.
Here's I guess how they supposedly came up with the settlement, like how they like decided on this settlement, because they had realized that most of their customers just wanted donuts. And that's how, just tracking their purchases. So they know.
They're like, we use the data. Based on the stolen data, it says you guys really like donuts.
We're right back to the candy bar thing. Hey, would you give me your password for a candy bar? Yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Would you let me track everything you do for a donut? Well, yeah.
So, all right. on a broader note, right? So this has to do specifically with what Apple has done and some of the other cell phone vendors have done with all the different permissions you have to select now when you install an app, right? That's what this is about. They had foresaw that, or they had predicted that in the future it could get worse, right? And so that's why when you're selecting all these things, you should be making sure. You turn off. Does your grocery store need to know where you are all the time? Okay.
Right.
Just
Yeah,
ask
if I
yourself
order
that
groceries, it's not going to know which grocery store I want to go pick it up at.
I can't just search near me. I don't know where I live, Ralph. I've been using. I'm not gonna lie. I've been using GPS for so long. I don't know where I live, and I
The
can't.
Russian one, right? The Russian GPS, was it?
So based on this, you know that there's conversations that like Google and Apple and these big companies and Amazon, they've got lawyers and class action lawsuits with entire nation states and blocks like the EU. And they're like having all these conversations about what are we going to do to try to work this out? How are we going to set this up as a settlement? Finally, someone comes in and they're like, Tim Hortons solved the problem. And all the lawyers are like, wait, what? How do we solve this problem? A hot beverage and a donut. And they're like, that's it. That's all we had to do to fix this. And like, yep. It's like,
Hey,
done. So,
but hey, Chick-fil-A, they just had this thing where they were saying you can volunteer to work for us and we'll pay you in sandwiches.
oh my God, I'd so do that.
You didn't see that?
Yes.
No, I missed that.
So
Sign
okay,
me
Yeah.
I got to go do my shift at Chick-fil-A real quick.
Yeah, I'll be right back. I gotta get
I think it was
So,
like
okay.
5 sandwiches for an hour, but that was as a volunteer.
okay.
Yeah.
So
That's good because I think they start at around like almost $20 an hour now.
oh
How
god.
long- that's a lot of sandwiches in an hour, Wade. That's a
Five
lot.
sandwiches.
That's like 5 sandwiches. I don't know. Chick-fil-A, I mean, the price is everything's going up, right? So I mean,
Everything's-
For me,
And you get
it's like
Sundays
I hate
off.
Chick-fil-A's like politics and things like that against certain marginalized groups, but I still eat there because they're delicious. I feel guilty every time. Now I'm gonna
It's
have to
God
work for
chicken.
it.
Also,
it's the best
if,
to eat it on Sundays.
if you do pass out, you get healthcare in the form of lemonade as you rest. So there's that.
I'm okay with all of this. Like, I broke my leg. Here's a lemonade. Oh, okay. Can I get some waffle fries?
I mean, if you give me a lemonade, I mean, most people just laugh at me.
Slow down, Sparky.
John, you missed the step where they broke your leg so that you would take the lemonade.
Well,
I guess we should have seen this coming with social
hit the
engineering.
limit. The Tim Hortons thing, like it's all Wild Wild West from here on out. So,
We've jumped the hot coffee, so to speak.
we jumped hot.
We
We jumped the moon day.
Someone check what Starbucks is doing because I got that app on my phone right now. I need to figure some stuff out.
Someone check.
It
You're the
sucks. I
Intel
haven't
dude,
eaten
you
anything
check.
today, and I'm just starving. And I'm so far away from a Chick-fil-A right now.
Well, they know. They've been tracking your location.
No.
Isn't it?
They're actually going to send you an offer to franchise a new Chick-fil-A near you.
Oh, I'd take it.
Then you get a bunch of volunteers. You pay them in chicken sandwiches. That's how you start your John Strand Chick-fil-A
What do you
empire.
get the man who has everything? Chick-fil-A.
He's got a Chick-fil-A in his house.
He's got-
The guy's got a Chick-fil-A in his living room. It's bizarre. All right, we need to wrap this up.
I had Chick-fil-A today.
Right. Well, that was a happy note. That wasn't like a sad, depressing surveillance state. That's happy. Chick-fil-A.
Yeah. Just don't download the app. I heard it.
We can't talk about the Neopets breach.
Flag. That'll get my franchise shut down, I think. So.
Yeah, whatever
Right.
whatever you do, don't download the Chick-fil-A app. That would mine your data too. I'm just kidding. I can't prove that, but we'll know.
Every app
No,
minds
that's
Uninstall that
hearsay.
real
We're just
quick.
joking. That's not real. We don't know that at all. So.
Dude, I will admit the Chick-fil-A app though hits you up like all the time. They're like, "Hey, free chicken sandwich today," and you got it.
I heard you're hungry. You're like,
Yeah.
I am hungry. I can see you on the map. You're nearby.
Oh,
Are
wife
you interested in chicken?
Where are you going? To the airport. I got to fly to Denver. I'll be back.
It's like, Hal, come back to me.
We need to wrap this up.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. All right. Well,
What kind of
thanks
cellar
everybody.
is John located? It's in South Dakota in the Black Hills. We're Wild West Hacking Fest. Wild West Hacking Fest. Come out to our conference this October. We don't have any Chick-fil-A's nearby.
You can meet all of us in person. You can meet all of us in person and realize we're just as annoying.
The bot.
Oh my God, we got the love chat bot. Love chat.
But this one isn't AI. This one isn't AI.
Oh, we gotta go. Ralph,
We
take us
gotta go
out.
now.
Oh
Ralph.
God, and
Out of here.
Well, it was
Later,
fun, everybody.
everybody.
We'll see you next
Bye.
time. Broken finger incoming.